So there's certain things that can help a ketogenic diet as far as supplements are concerned. I think I've got Dr. Dom D'Agostino here with me, and he and I both share a very similar philosophy when it comes down to nutritional ketosis and supplements. Like, you really don't want to be loading yourself up with a bunch of them, but there's a few that really do seem to catapult you into a little bit of a different level and kind of help you out, especially if you're training. So, I mean, you've kind of got your top ones that you use right here that we can talk about, and then I'll share a couple of mine as well.
Yeah, like maybe 5 supplements, and some are more important on a ketogenic diet, for sure. I guess the first supplement that I realized I should be taking was magnesium. So, because my blood work showed when I started a ketogenic diet, I was deficient in magnesium. And I was getting some cramps and stuff. So there's a couple magnesium products out there. Calm product, I just have to come, Magtine is really good. It's bound with an amino acid. And then BioOptimizers makes magnesium breakthrough. So they're all very good. And I've noticed, when I do a micronutrient measurement blood work, my magnesium is in the high range of normal. So we talked about magnesium in other videos, and it's like one of those staple supplements.
Are you measuring RBC magnesium or just?
I'll have to see. I did it through Quest and also another through LabCorp. First through LabCorp, which identified me as magnesium low, just below the normal range. So I'll have to see that. It's a good question.
One of the studies that I was involved with was the Scottsdale Magnesium study, which was looking at that, just that, like serum magnesium versus the RBC magnesium. Yeah. And that's my point is that not from this study in particular, but in general, what I've seen with people that do keto is they do tend to have lower RBC, which is your red blood cell magnesium, which is really a good measurement. You're not always going to be deficient RBC, even if your serum's it can be skewed. But I think either way, what I've noticed with magnesium, and I take a dimagnesium malate. I take one from Jigsaw, which is it's a very sustained release. So I take I'm careful to talk dosages because, again, this is my dosage, doesn't mean anything. I find I take between 500 to 800 milligrams per day, which is a hefty amount for some that might give them a little bit of a...
I overdose on magnesium, so I don't think you can...
The worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to have to go to the bathroom. Yep. I mean, it's the worst thing. So it's the rest are going to urinate out, whatever. But I'd say, I'd probably go on record to say that that's probably I bring that everywhere with me, various forms of magnesium, and magnesium glycinate for sleep, magnesium threonate if I want a little bit more brain.
Cross the blood-brain barrier,
And we, I guess I can link out to it in the description, but we did went pretty in-depth on the NMDA receptor and kind of the effect of magnesium on the brain. But one of the ways, just FYI, with ketosis, people ask a lot, is that I've known from just various research in my work with Jigsaw too, is that the difference between a potassium and a magnesium cramp, especially in ketosis, but it's really with anything. A potassium cramp, you're generally going to feel intra-workout while you're working out. A magnesium cramp is one of the ones that kind of comes to you almost in the middle of the night, leg cramp, kind of that kind of thing. Not always, but that's generally the case. So if you're doing keto and you're finding you're waking up with leg cramps, that's kind of a pretty solid lagging indicator that you're mag deficient.
I had a lot of that when I started keto, and I thought, I was almost was thinking that I can't do this. I'd wake up typically always about 3 o'clock in the morning when I had to pee, and I'd have to get up and walk around, and it was really annoying. So I think just getting more electrolytes in, and sodium too, I think can help to balance out your electrolytes.
Yeah, I mean, I use the Element electrolytes. Those are really good. 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, 60 milligrams of magnesium. Those are really good ones.
Yeah. After this video, I want you to check out Natural Heaven. So Natural Heaven is a pasta that is made from only one ingredient, hearts of palm. So literally just one ingredient. So we're talking just a couple of grams of net carbs. So if you want to have pasta, they have pasta. But now they also have rice. So they have a brown rice that is made from literally just hearts of palm. So one ingredient. When it comes down to comparing it to cauliflower rice, I like it quite a bit more because cauliflower rice is pretty firm. It gets kind of, chunky. It doesn't have the consistency of rice, whereas this one feels a little bit more like rice. So if you're trying to have kind of a lower carb alternative, anyway, I put a link down below along with a special link to save a few bucks. So you can only get that link through my channel because they are a big supporter and sponsor on this channel. So a big thank you to Natural Heaven and a big thank you to you for supporting the sponsors that keep this channel rocking.
So the other one I guess we go to is just creatine monohydrate, is just basically I think when you do follow a ketogenic diet and you don't have maybe as much glycogen in there and you want that explosive energy when you're working out, I think creatine can really help to promote, you know, that explosiveness that may be lost when you're on a ketogenic diet. And it's, I mean, people don't think about it, but creatine's an awesome brain supplement.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and there's just so many benefits to creatine. If we're going to talk about scientific research, I don't think there's not any other ergogenic supplement that probably has the backing. Maybe caffeine.
Yeah.
But.
And I think that nice thing with you know, creatine is candidly, I mean, just go for the cheap monohydrate. You don't need any ethyl ester. You don't. As a matter of fact, I think the monohydrate works better, and I think that's been demonstrated. It's. But yeah, I mean, when you're in keto, especially, I can speak for myself with training. You know, you can lose some of that strength sometimes in the gym and lose some of that pop. I didn't lose too much strength with keto, but what I did lose was that quick burst when I do like sprints. When I go, I don't feel like I have that little oomph in the first like 4 seconds of a sprint. In fact, it actually feels like I tend to have to do more almost build-up sprints. If I, you know, and I don't do anything crazy. Like I'll add maybe 5 to 10 grams at the most, usually 5 grams of creatine, and then. One of the things I've noticed is that probably a 5 gram serving in that one. Yeah. And then 2 grams. That's all you really need to get a little brain boost.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Yeah. I do 2 or 3 grams twice a day. So that's kind of like my maintenance.
And then when you're transitioning, like if you're into, you know, muscle building or anything like that, you know, you can lose obviously a lot of glycogen at first until your glycogen stores kind of rebuild up on keto. And the nice thing about creatine, it does kind of help that intracellular water a little bit more, so you get that intracellular volume. So that alone can have a strength effect just because increasing that internal leverage and kind of helping with that too. So I especially guys that are like really concerned with like losing muscle on keto, I'm like, hey, you know, honestly, just like if you take 5 grams of creatine, it really does sort of, even the like perception offsets that a little bit. You retain a little bit of water, and it's usually intracellular. It's usually not puffiness unless you start going like 10 grams plus.
And another supplement that, well, I think people on a ketogenic diet should take is acetyl L-carnitine. And so you did an excellent video on this that reinforced it, and so I bumped up my dose of acetyl L-carnitine. But it's important because clinically we see, especially in kids that follow the ketogenic diet for epilepsy, one thing that consistently shows up on their blood work is a deficiency in carnitine. So it actually, when implementing the ketogenic diet clinically, it's one of the things that the neurologist or the dietitian team will supplement with a ketogenic diet. So that happens because you become such a massive fat-burning machine on a ketogenic diet, and carnitine is used to transport the fatty acids into the mitochondria. And you can deplete carnitine when you're just oxidizing a lot of fat, but also when you're exercising. So if you are following a ketogenic diet and you're an athlete on top of that, you are depleting even more carnitine. So I haven't measured my carnitine, but I think I should, but I have seen it come up routinely, always in blood work. It's like almost 80% chance that, you know, someone's going to be deficient in carnitine, you know, clinically if they're following a ketogenic diet. But red meat, I mean, the redder the meat, the more carnitine it has in it and stuff. So you're probably getting a lot through diet, but I do know it's one of the supplements that I do notice a boost in, especially acetyl L-carnitine.
Yeah, and I heavily promote a Mediterranean ketogenic diet, which is not devoid of red meat, but it's definitely more fish and protein from poultry and things like that. So I very hard stance on it. I'm like, this is something that's very important. And I noticed the one, I vacillate back and forth. You prefer the acetyl form just because of the blood-brain barrier effect?
Carnitine tartrate might be a little bit better for the muscles, and I was using kind of both. But yeah, but what's your carnitine?
Usually a tartrate. But I wasn't sure. You know, it's been a little bit bleak in terms of what I've been able to find in research. If the acetyl L-carnitine is better, it's certainly not worse. But I don't know if it's, you know, there's supposedly it can cross the blood-brain barrier. I don't know if that's the case. That's not my area of expertise.
There's pretty good evidence that it can. Yeah, and also acetyl L-carnitine has with it a mood boosting effect. So there's good data on depression.
Really?
Yeah.
No, that's
so
good
look
enough.
that up. I mean, people watching this, acetyl L-carnitine and depression, go to PubMed, you'll see some literature on that.
I'll write that one down. That's an
and the
interesting.
doses are not insignificant. I mean, it's like 2 to 4. Some athletes are using up to 8 grams a day, like I read in some cases.
Yeah,
but usually
like a 4 gram dose usually for me.
Yeah, 2 to 4 is probably pretty good. Yeah.
Interesting. All right, what's next on Dom's list?
So we got a couple of different things here. So KETOSTART, a lot of people ask me about keto supplements. So KETOSTART is a beta hydroxybutyrate supplement, and it's beta hydroxybutyrate combined with electrolytes, right? So it gives the same electrolyte profile as Element, which is a supplement I really like.
Yeah.
But this is KETOSTART is delivering the electrolytes with beta hydroxybutyrate. So when you take it, you definitely feel a kick. If you are trying a ketogenic diet starting out, sometimes your ketone production is not that high. The good thing about KETOSTART beta hydroxybutyrate salts relative to ketone esters is that when your ketones go up and come back down, you're still making ketones. So a large dose of a ketone ester can kind of decrease your own ketone production, probably because you get the insulin bump. But KETOSTART's great because it's potent. It's 10 grams of beta hydroxybutyrate, pure beta hydroxybutyrate. Potency, purity, and most important, the tolerability. So there's just so many people ask me, like, what ketone supplement do you take? And I couldn't give them honestly a good recommendation with a ketone salt because of the GI issues and just the taste and everything else. So this kind of checks all the boxes: taste and tolerability, potency, purity, things like that. And it's the added electrolytes too. So you get the sodium, potassium, magnesium, and everything that you get from Element, but you're delivering ketones at the same time. So
yeah, that's a hefty dose. Like 10 grams compared to most that are 1, 2, maybe 3. Like
yes. So it's super potent. And you don't want to, a lot of people are talking about the ketone esters as being more potent, but I noticed that if I get my ketone levels above 2 millimolar and I'm measuring insulin, that's when I start getting a pulse of insulin.
Yeah.
So, and I don't really feel that it's important or necessary to jack your ketones up really high, just for the same reason you don't want to jack your glucose up really high, right? So a good boost that you'll feel is in that 1 to 2 millimolar range, and you can achieve that with a ketone salt, and you're delivering the electrolytes, which your body does get depleted when you're in a state of ketosis. So that's another supplement in my arsenal. And then I guess I would, and you tried this, you liked it.
Yeah,
so
that was interesting.
I love coffee, I drink coffee. So Brainz, I got turned on to this company, they sent it to me. Many companies send me things. So about 90% of the stuff I don't like. But Brainz really appealed to me, and because it's got MCT, C8, alpha GPC, which is a pretty legit nootropic, lion's mane, and L-theanine. Yeah. When you take this and add it to coffee, you get the energetic effects of coffee, but it levels you out. Of course, your ketones go up too, so your ketones are elevated, the alpha GPC and theanine have their effect, and the lion's mane has a pretty nice effect too, because I've taken that as an individual supplement. So this is a great product to add to your coffee if you really want to crank out work. It takes all the jitters out of a strong cup of coffee, and it just seems to promote a really steady flow of energy and thought for hours after I drink it. So,
well, I mean, MCT oil / MCT powder was going to be one of the ones that I mentioned as kind of one of my go-tos, but I am on the fence of considering it a food versus a supplement. So sometimes I consider it a food. So I mean, regardless, I mean, MCTs, I mean, you can almost call it the poor man's ketones, I think is what you know, which, because you can drive ketone levels up pretty high with it, but the thing I like about it is even if I'm not in ketosis, I still feel an effect from ketones. And actually, I mean, I can't speak to Brainz specifically because I tried some, it tastes delicious, and I definitely felt the brain charge, but theanine I'm a huge fan of to begin with. Even pre-workout, just there's an interesting vasodilation effect with theanine as well. So it's a calming effect, but it promotes sort of this, almost like how glycine has like a cooling effect. So it triggers kind of this vasodilation to different areas, which I've noticed that I actually get a tremendous pump with it. So if you're working out, it's just something to consider too. So I actually have theanine in my backpack. I just take like 100 to 200 milligrams of theanine.
I love theanine. Yeah, about 400 is what I take, but I take it maybe once or twice a week.
Yeah.
For like if I'm giving a lecture or something like
just
that.
brain calms down.
And it combines nice with caffeine, so it takes the anxiety-inducing effects of caffeine and just kind of levels.
So I drink a lot of green tea because of the naturally
Yeah.
occurring theanine, right? I feel like I get
Yes, that's right.
60, 80 milligrams of caffeine with the 40 to 60 theanine that's in it. It's like a nice, like that's why the difference, if you ever have tea versus coffee, a lot of times you'll feel like tea just doesn't amp you up as much.
And for sleep, I take melatonin, and I think there's good brain neuroprotective effects of melatonin. I don't have melatonin here, but I do have True Kava makes Kavaplex, and so this is something I think is really cool. And then they have drinks too. And if maybe you have a problem with alcohol and you want to kick the alcohol habit, or just want to supplement alcohol with something, the True Kava gives a nice little buzz, a nice calming effect. So this is, I recently got turned on to it. I tried it and I liked it, which is rare, you know. So I like this idea of Kava as something like an after work kind of, it almost picks you up too. There's a Kava mind, which kind of seems to focus. But I feel like when I take something that calms me down, I feel more focused. And occasionally I'll take something like Phenibut, maybe once or twice a month or something. And I do notice that GABA makes me more energetic and focused in that context. And maybe there's a little bit of dopamine effect from that too. So.
Yeah, Kava is interesting stuff. They've been on my channel a couple of times, and it's very interesting. It's like you get the social attributes of alcohol, like that social kind of barriers being dropped, where you feel like more social without the inhibitory effects of alcohol. Like you don't feel inhibited, you don't feel intoxicated. So it's pretty interesting stuff. I think regardless of keto, it's a very interesting compound. You know, one that we were talking about that we don't have here that I'm a huge fan of is almost said CLA, still CLO, so cod liver oil. CLA is actually interesting too, but I just get that straight from heavy cream. I don't need to take a supplement for that. But cod liver oils, because I'm a huge fan of vitamin D. And there's some interesting, it's sort of convoluted, but synthetic forms of vitamin D I still think are really solid because we have such a vitamin D issue in the world right now. But a bioavailable form of vitamin D is pretty interesting, and that doesn't deplete retinol A. So with cod liver oil, I feel like I can up the dosage quite a bit and get a good dose of vitamin D that way.
So you're turning me on to that, so I might switch.
It's and I don't think that, I mean, because you're presently
you're
taking krill right now.
Omega-3s, I feel like are almost nootropic if I drink, 3 or 4 grams of it. But I eat a lot of sardines and stuff too. And lately I've been eating not a supplement, but a mackerel packed in olive oil.
That's the
and I do
highest fat fish you can get.
And I've done Wild Planet. They make a good one. This is Seasons. I get it on Amazon. So 2 foods that I travel with. I mean, you're traveling. I don't know what you're bringing with travel, but I always travel with like sardines or oysters. But I subscribe and get this mackerel, and I've been loving the mackerel. But also, and people may flame me for this, but it's tasty pastries are pretty cool. So I actually almost one per day, and this is the chocolate cake version. I mean, the taste is amazing. My CGM is completely flat, and if I compare it to something similar like a Pop-Tart, which I tested, which shoots me up to like over 200, this is like has a completely different no effect, and it tastes just as good or better.
They're a good company. I actually haven't tried their Pop-Tarts. I know back when they were making different kinds of almonds and stuff like that, I tried Legendary. So I have to try that.
I mean, I don't eat a whole lot of like packaged foods. I'm pretty much a Whole Foods guy, but I mean, if there's one crutch that I have, it's this. And man, I mean, it's basically just protein and no glycemic response, and my GI system tolerates it really well. So I tend to love them.
I think another one that you and I both take that we don't have at the table is we're fans of Nicotinamide Mononucleotide.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is, we didn't bring it because it's usually refrigerated. But
so we both love that, and really good data on that. So.
Yeah, that's especially with keto, and just to like make it very super abbreviated, because this is a relatively simple video that I don't want to like go super in depth, but essentially when you're in ketosis or when you're fasting, you're increasing what is called your NAD to NADH ratio. So every time you eat food, like any food really, you are basically carrying electrons over to a gradient to ultimately create energy. That's a very simplified way of putting it. That electron triggers NAD to bind to what's called NADH. Well, when NAD binds to NADH and transfers over, you're left with less available NAD. NAD, when it's not transferring energy, let's just call it that, what it does is it can go and activate things called sirtuins. It has other jobs. It's basically the way that I describe NAD, and that whole process is like, it's like someone that's a very busybody that has to do something, and if it's not doing its primary job, it goes and finds other things to do. So there's a lot of interesting evidence. Dr. David Sinclair's talked a lot about it in terms of potential longevity effects, and what NMN is Nicotinamide Mononucleotide, and that as well as nicotinamide riboside, but I'm more of a fan of NMN as a precursor to NAD.
Yeah.
So the reason I say that is on keto, just because the glucose metabolism is a little bit less, you're already freeing up more NAD, and this just can be an adjunct to kind of an extra booster for that, for potential sirtuin activation, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so the product that I use, I think you do, is Verso, which is a very good quality NAD, and yeah, so NAD, so the Krebs cycle produces the reduced intermediates that actually drive the electron flux through the electron transport chain, and I feel that when I take the supplement, I didn't really notice anything until I bumped up dose.
Yeah.
So I'll say that, and
6,
I
8
didn't
caps,
really. Yeah, I actually was using 12 caps.
Man, okay, I topped it.
But also I noticed when I first started taking the NAD supplement, I didn't really notice it in the beginning, but my wife mentioned she was taking it and she rarely talks about anything and said, this is giving me more energy. I took it, I didn't really feel a big effect, but then I doubled the dose. And then I thought I was feeling an effect, and then I noticed I was swimming laps in the pool, and when I really push myself, that's when I felt the second wind.
Yeah.
So, and then I got off of it, and then I did the same thing, and I didn't feel the second wind. Then I got back on it, and I was feeling the second wind. So I'm convinced it's one of the few supplements that when I take it, I was feeling it. I also feel maybe a neurological boost with it too. So
no, there's definitely something going on, and it's just like it's hard to speak to without making an outlandish claim. But I can say my own anecdotal experience, and I've said this on the channel before when I've talked about them, even as a sponsor in other videos. They're not a sponsor of this video. It's legitimately something we use, but it's it's my own anecdotal experience, and it's just interesting. And the last one that I'll just kind of touch on, that I don't think it's a required supplement, but it's something that, especially when I travel, if my diversity of my food is not significant, I'm not opposed to taking a good prebiotic / probiotic. And again, that being said, I wholeheartedly believe that diversity of food trumps all, and that's going to be the best way to benefit your microbiome. But I'm a big fan of companies that are behind the research. There's a company called Seed that has an interesting probiotic too. It's a symbiotic, so a prebiotic and a probiotic with just an interesting kind of multi-stage delivery technology that's I find fascinating. And that's really it for me. I mean, I don't even take that regularly. I take that when I travel, or when I'm going to have a change in diet and things like that.
Yeah. So I do take one other supplement, and we talked about that a little bit because we were talking about HRT and TRT, and people ask me because I'm not getting any younger. Mid to upper 40s, pushing 50. So I did notice when I was about 42, I got blood work, my DHEA level, dihydroepiandrosterone, was kind of low. So I take 100 milligrams of DHEA first thing in the morning, elevates my testosterone from like the low or the 380 to 400 range up into about the 600 range for the duration of the day, then it comes back down. So I am on a form of hormone supplement. I get it off Amazon. But 100 milligrams of DHEA has given me a noticeable effect that I can see in my blood work. Generally positive. DHEA obviously goes up, and then my testosterone probably about a 20% boost. The only negative thing, that potentially negative, is that my HDL and you have an amazing HDL, so which I think is really important. Used to hover around 80, and now it's about upper 50s to 60s. That's the only negative, and I don't know if it's because of the DHEA or what, but it's still okay. But DHEA is a supplement I've been using continuously now for about 5 years, and it's one of my staple supplements.
I did mess around with, we both know Dr. Andrew Huberman. I did, after watching his Rogan podcast on Tongkat Ali,
yes.
I did mess around with that, and I saw a noticeable increase in my testosterone, but this is interesting. This is purely my own experience. I had to stop taking it because I think it drove my DHT up so high, my hair started falling out.
Really?
Not in like clumps, but I would notice, I was like, that's how I know it's working. Now, maybe I don't have baldness in my family either, but it wasn't like anything where it was noticeably thinning. It was like when I wash my hair, I'm like, there's a little bit of hair. The only thing that's changed is the long jack, Tongkat Ali. And I was taking like 600 milligrams a day, and I was just going to reduce the dose, but I'm like, I need to go off of it entirely to make sure the hair thing resolves. To come off within 2 weeks, no more shedding. It could have been correlational with any other thing. I was doing a lot of really high heat sauna at the time that might have been drying my hair out. But anyway, that is like for people that's a very interesting, multi pathway.
I would tell people to try it out. So I did too. So I listened to Andrew Huberman, and then I bought a bottle and I took it, and I do feel an effect from a libido energy perspective. I think I ran out, so I have not been using it for a while. I did get my testosterone, but I didn't see any effect on my testosterone, I don't think.
It's a great anti-aromatase though. That's what I noticed. Is it cut my estrogen down. So that's what I like.
Levels.
So my estradiol was so it has an anti-aromatase effect. Has an effect on SHBG. It's multifaceted, like it's how it works. But it's just it's interesting.
Well, with hair loss thing, I took finasteride years ago, and I didn't like the side effects from it. But I've been using the Juve, the red light therapy that I was telling you about. So I kind of put my head down, and I feel that that has a preservation. I started losing hair back in maybe when in my 20s or whatever. But I think red light has an effect, and I don't want to. And that's why, probably why I won't go the HRT route or anything, because I think that would lead to faster loss. So, but DHEA is a supplement that I take, and I think I do feel a boost from that, just about 100 milligrams a day.
Interesting. Well, there you have it. And all these things are pretty basic, inexpensive, so it's not designed to be a plug or push for anything specifically. It's just, these are simple things that I guess Dominic and Tom put together. So, as always, keep it locked in here on the channel, and see you tomorrow.